Hello there and welcome to Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Jadil Kabiru. Always glad to have you joining us for our conversations which we hope will help our political leaders in making better policy decisions and informed political moves. These conversations come to you simply, truthfully, unbiasedly with Herman Manyora, who is a political analyst, strategist, and commentator. He brings it across in a hard-hitting manner. How are you doing today?
Good.
We're having a conversation reacting to your talk, the talk we had here about Raila Odinga and his candidature for the chairmanship of African Union Commission. In our comment section, some say you're overly confident, as you were in 2022, about Raila winning the elections here in Kenya. President William Ruto goes to Iyala MPs and tells them, support this man, go ahead, we are pushing for East African candidate to take over the position of African Union. People like Jeremiah Kioni, leaders, telling Raila Odinga to tread carefully when it comes to dealing with Ruto, because Ruto might actually bring him down, especially when this might be the actual race, the final race for Raila Odinga. Are you overconfident with Raila bagging the AU seat?
Yeah, I remember saying Raila could even go unopposed.
Yes.
And many people have called me, stopped me in the streets, and as usual, the places I visit, tell me I could be wrong. Now, incidentally, yesterday while having fish in some joint where Luos make good fish, some people confronted me, not badly of course, and they told me Raila could face headwinds. And they were very eloquent about it. There are people known to me. Two of the people are from South Sudan, and they told me they have a candidate. That candidate can give Raila a run for his money.
Who's that candidate?
He's a man I think is called Albino. Albino Abwatch.
Okay.
He's an AU person, AU ambassador, AU representative for South Sudan. He has been at the AU for about 10 years. He's a young man in his 40s. He's a dual citizenship of America and South Sudan, special envoy for the president of South Sudan, and so on and so forth. And so I asked them how. It's very interesting. Politics has its own dynamics. They gave me things that I had not looked at. One, big nations are, and I mentioned that a bit of that, big nations are frowned upon by small nations, and small nations are more. So a candidate from South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, and such would make other countries very uncomfortable. That feeling that they can dominate. Part of what informed the crafting of the American Constitution, because it was feared really that California and Texas could very easily gang up and take the president forever. Yeah. You know, big people, that big man, big thing syndrome, people fear small. It informed the formation of Kadu. Yeah, in the 1960s, up there about. Because Moi and Ngara from the coast and Moi from the Rift Valley and Shikuku from the Luya, they were saying the Kikuyu and the Luo, the big tribes then, would dominate the rest. So this idea of people fearing big countries, even in Africa, is real. And these guys, if there's another candidate, assuming it is settled that it must be an East African candidate, you can produce two from East Africa and people will go for the weaker one, for the other one. So that is one. Secondly, Raila is a domineering figure. That doesn't really endear him to smaller people at the same time. The domineering figure, a domineering, overbearing African leader. You get it? Even some president will not be comfortable. You can imagine, because they want a chairman of AU
that can be controlled,
who doesn't diminish the stature of the presidents. You can imagine Raila sitting in that seat with the presidents around there. They look small. That thing is not. So I listened to this guy say, hey. And then they also went into the details why Raila could be beaten by even that Somali woman or this albino man. Yeah. You see, the East African region is not the East African community. The region expands up to those island nations, you know, those Seychelles, Comoros, and Mauritius, those ones. And they have always wanted to join the community here. I'm not sure about that. But I hear, just like some countries in Europe have denied Morocco and I think Turkey and others the right to join the EU, I think Kenya has been on the far front. Again, I'm not very sure. But those arguments are advancing.
Dynamics.
Yeah, that we have not been very supportive of those guys joining the East African community. So, and again, they are small. They are off the island, off the mainland. We dismiss them. Then you look at the Kenyan Somali thief. Then you look at Kagame, the guy of Burundi. Museveni has just been roped in, but these are secret ballot votes. Then you begin to see, if the East African people were to settle a candidate, if they are told, this is your region, not East African community, the East African region, this is your time, give us one candidate. And the people voted, Raila could lose.
But it's
I
not...
said, what? They could lose.
I want to know, because it's not really about Raila the figure. It's also Raila the person who has had a close relationship with these African leaders.
Yes.
So when they're voting for him, they will not just see someone who is a figure in Africa, someone who has a big name in Africa, but someone who has a close relationship with them. Don't you think this will play
a close relationship as a peer at some level? But if you want to elevate somebody in a position which is supposed to be really nominal in terms of power dynamics, but the person who... See, people like Raila have the tendency to bring power to an office. Anybody can be chairman of AU commission, anybody, including you, and nobody will care. But if you give it to Raila, he redefines that office. It becomes bigger than the creators want it to be. So these are the dynamics that may play, even if they didn't vote for one candidate. So there was another candidate from the East African region with Raila, or two of them. Then with Raila, three. He could lose.
You also talk about...
I said, you guys, have you been bribed? Have you been bought?
But you also talk about something interesting about the big nations in Africa, say Kenya,
Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt.
What about Raila being proposed by Uganda, not Kenya specifically? Don't you think he had foreseen this, and that's why he asked Museveni to propose him?
The image that in East Africa, Kenya is not standing pretty. Of course, there are the dynamics. Look at Congo, for example, DRC. DRC cannot be very happy with Kenya, because I think now that means Kenya with Ruto. But Tshisekedi, the president, may not have a big problem with Raila, the person. Those are the dynamics. But if nations were to relate the way they relate with us, not many people in the region are happy with us. And some of these things are historical. Even when you had the original East African community, it broke because of the suspicion Tanzania and Uganda had about Kenya. They felt Kenya was overbearing, over-domineering, taking the lion's share. Up to this day, if you walk in Tanzania, if you want to be treated, say, well, just say I'm from Uganda. And take care of your Swahili. Break it kidogo like Ugandans. Don't say you are Kenyan. Yeah, that thing is still there. Some of these historical factors can play against Raila Odinga. And I don't want to support those who are saying Ruto could be giving him a trap, but you can imagine if he lost, what Ruto will say. Huyu jamaa tunawaambianga mnafikiri ni hapa anaibiwa. Mmeona hata Afrika amekataliwa. Those are realities. So Raila has to navigate extremely careful. And if I were Raila, if I send the possibility of defeat, I will not run, because it will finish him. It will finish him
permanently, because
he will be dealing with that. And the fact that he can go for anything and he can betray the people. That narrative of betrayal, I'll talk about it soon.
You've talked about it kind of in your video on Saturday. But we want to look at Raila the politician.
Yes.
He has played politics here in Kenya. Yes. Are there different dynamics that he might not be aware of when it comes to playing politics now in the African region?
No, Raila is a politician. He understands many of these things. But you see, these things beyond Kenya and beyond Raila. It has its own dynamics where, however astute you are as a politician, you become hopeless and useless, faced with certain realities. Like there's realities of small countries. Yeah.
Who want to be...
They don't like big domineering countries. They may not be happy with Kenya, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa. I know there was a South African lady. You know, that the Zuma former wife, things like that. But those are the dynamics.
But also something else is about Raila running as a person, and him coming from Kenya.
Yes, those are two different things.
How do
you have to play around. You play around with that. Kenya can be a disadvantage to you. Kenya can be an advantage to you. But Raila is a seasoned politician. Uhuru Kenyatta has a network of friends. He's a very respected African leader. If Uhuru is supporting him, and you cannot even tell that Uhuru is supporting Raila. Those are some of the dynamics. Not that he wanted. There are those who say he wanted. I was on KTN, and some guy was telling her this, I don't know, Arnold, whatever. This guy was very eloquent with Azimio now.
Arnold Maliba.
Now he's donning. He keeps saying, the UDI I work for. He talks about Uhuru wanting to run. I'm not buying into that, but it is a possibility. Now, even without that, how sure Uhuru will be happy with Raila running? It's possible he may not be happy. Because Uhuru, I think, assuming Uhuru really wanted Raila to win, and the only problem is that he was weak, and he did not see his people playing behind his back and supporting Ruto. He may want to revenge. He may want to deliver a Raila presidency. And considering, he may want also to send Ruto home in 2027. And the surest bet he would have is Raila Odinga. So he may not even be happy that Raila is going to AU. And if he has, so he may not play as effective a role as he should play in making Raila bag this seat. So in short, I have changed my mind. Not my mind. I'm having a real look at this thing. It's no longer automatic that Raila can win.
How would you advise Raila? I know Raila knows politics, difficult to advise him because he knows everything per se. But how would you advise him? Because it seems to have banked a lot in trusting Uhuru. Now it seems like he's trusting Ruto for AU. Is this the right way to go? How would you advise him when navigating?
I will only advise Raila one thing. Just be sure that you can win this thing before you go for it. You have the capacity to know. If you set up a team, just like it's done in America. When you want to run for office, you set up a team to an exploratory team, to explore the possibility of your running. Not you are running, the possibility of your running. Then you keep changing the terms of reference until perhaps some of them constitute your campaign team. Let him set up a team of people. He has had time to learn who can work with him. He has had time to see sycophants around him. People who sing his praise. People who do not even mind stabbing him in the back. People who work with his enemies. He has had time to see. And he has had time to know who is intelligent, who he can bring around. So let him form a team, a continental team, which can help him make an honest assessment of his chances. Because if he goes for it and doesn't make it, he will never recover. What a way to end your illustrious political career. The dreams of many people will die with Raila Odinga. So that's one thing he must handle. The other thing is this thing of betrayal. He must handle those things very carefully. He has to navigate them carefully. But the possibility of Raila losing to what you might consider a weak candidate are now very clear. They are there.
Well, thank you for tuning into this conversation. Was it an overly optimistic Professor Manyora now coming out and saying that Raila's chances of losing are actually reality? Thank you for tuning into this conversation. Until we do talk again, have yourself a lovely rest of your day.